Sound test mic. What's up, guys? Learning with Rich here. In this video, we are going to talk about how we are going to define discipline settings before we start our project in Revit MEP. All right, so this lesson describes how to define discipline settings. So again, we begin the lesson by learning about mechanical and electrical settings. Okay, and then let's check out if we do have some recommended practices for defining discipline settings. Okay, now the first setting that we'll be talking about is the mechanical setting. So before that, so let's open up our sample file, the exercise file that we will be using for the discipline setting. So I'll be using this one. So it's a Revit 2010 version. So I'm gonna open this and maybe I'll just save it to 2020. All right, so you create mechanical systems by placing system components and connecting them using automatic layout tools. And most of the time, we also use the manual tools to determine mechanical settings such as duct and piping routing scheme to connect system components. So we will be doing that on our next videos. So you can also use automatic layout tools to manually specify mechanical settings to maintain, let's say, consistency among various mechanical system components in a project. So basically, mechanical settings control various aspects of the display and generation of duct and pipe components. Okay, so let us check out how to define the mechanical settings. So like what I have said, the mechanical settings or MS, if you are going to type the shortcut, it determines the behavior and appearance of the ductwork. Not only that, it also includes the piping for mechanical piping, plumbing, and fire protection system. So to specify these settings, we use the mechanical settings dialog box. So the shortcut for that is MS, or you can go here on the systems tab. So if you go to the systems tab, you can see their mechanical, and then there's an arrow that is pointing to the lower right. Okay, so that is your mechanical settings. Okay, so if you want to follow the exercise, you can just simply create an example file or just use a new one, and then you just create a new mechanical template. So if you want to show both the mechanical and then the electrical settings on the project browser, so what you need to use is the systems template. So you can select the browse there just to quickly show you. So there is this systems default metric that you can use. So it's a combination of mechanical and electrical. So as you can see, mine here is already mechanical and electrical because it's from the system's default metric. All right. Okay. So to specify these settings, like what I have said, we can select here the mechanical settings. So when you click that, you can see here the mechanical settings dialog box, and these are the settings that you can modify before you start your project, and you can even include the settings that you will be using here when setting up your company template. Okay, so as you can see here on the left side of the dialog box, so it contains different categories here, like the hidden line. You also have the duct settings, and then you also have the pipe settings. So each of these categories contains settings that you can specify for the system in your Revit MEP project. Okay, so take note that the duct and pipe settings can be created in template files or copied to other projects using the Transfer Project Standards option on the Manage tab. So if you remember, we have discussed that one, the Transfer Project and Standard. So it's here. So you can copy the duct and pipe settings that we will be using here to another project. Or, so once you set up your duct and pipe settings, so what you can do is you can save the project as a template. Okay, so you can start creating your project template. Like for example, I select mechanical template, so you can start a project template. So inside that project template, so you do all the settings that needed or the standards needed by your company in this template, and then you can save it as your project template. So every time you start a project, so you can use that template. So that includes the duct and pipe settings. Okay, so it can be added to your template files. Okay, so if you will notice, going back to our systems tab, mechanical settings, there is this option here or category here, hidden line. Okay, so using the hidden line settings, so you can define how a drawing appears when ducts or pipes in separate planes cross each other. So this indicates that the duct or pipe is hidden by and does not connect to the drawing segments in the foreground. So you can modify these settings here. So you have draw MEP lines, MEP hidden lines. So basically, if you check this one, it enables you to draw piping with the line style and gaps specified for the hidden lines. And then you also have here the line style. So it specifies a line style to be used when duct or pipe segments cross each other. So you can select from a list of the predefined line styles here, but also you can add to this by defining the line style in the line styles dialog box. So for the line style, so you can go here on the manage tab, additional setting, and then you can go to the line styles there. So if you want to create your own line style, so you can do it here. So you can create a new one. Okay. So aside from the line style, so we also have the inside gap. So the inside gap, it specifies the gap for the lines that appear within a crossing duct or a pipe segment. So the inside gap distance is between the edge of the crossing segment and the start of the line. Okay, so the inside gap is not displayed when the thin line command is active. This one. Okay, so the inside gap is not displayed when the thin lines command is active. So you also have here outside gap. So it specifies the gap for the lines that appear outside a crossing duct or a pipe segment. So the outside gap distance is between the edge of the crossing segment and the start of the line. Again, the outside gap, just like the inside gap, is not displayed when the thin lines command is active. And then you also have the settings here for single line. So if you change the detail level to coarse, like for example, your dock becomes single line, so you also have a setting here to modify that single line. For example, okay, I'm gonna draw here a duct. Okay, so I'm gonna draw a duct. I'll draw a duct here. I'll zoom in like that. So there's my duct. And then that is 2,750 elevation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this lower. The next duct that I'm going to draw will going to be lower. So I'm going to draw here from here. All right. So basically there's your inside gap and then you also have an outside gap here. Okay. If I'm going to back here on the mechanical settings, all right. So let's play around with the MEP hidden line. So if this is unchecked, and then I select here OK, so it will disappear. Okay, so notice that the hidden line, MEP hidden lines disappear. So you can control that from here. You can also specify the line style. Now for the inside gap, so let's say I'm gonna make this 0.1 and then I select here OK. So there's your setting there. So that's the 0.1. So if I'm gonna make this 0.5, so let's see how it looks like. All right, so you see. And then I also want to change the outside gap. So let's say I'm going to make this 1 mm. I select OK. So there you go. Okay. So let's say I'm going to change the inside gap to 1 mm as well. I select here OK. There you go. So it changed, right? And then if I'm going to change my duct or pipe detail level. So I changed that to coarse because if I change that to medium, the duct will not be affected, but your pipe, it will be affected. So if you want to make your duct single line, you can change the detail level to coarse, just like that. And then as you can see, there's a gap again. So you can modify that single line gap there, the value. So let's say I'm going to make this 2 to make it more uh, visible and noticeable. So I select OK, and there you go. So there's the 2 mm gap. So basically, that's how you use your settings here, the hidden line setting. So aside from that, you also have duct settings and pipe settings. For the duct settings, when you select a duct settings here on our left side, which is what I just did, okay, the right side here displays the settings that you can apply to the air system in our project. Okay, so these are the settings that you can change. Like, for example, this use annotation scale for single line fittings. So basically, it specifies whether duct fittings are drawn at the size specified by the duct fitting annotation size parameter. Okay, all right, so with the duct fitting annotation size, basically it specifies the plotted size of fittings and accessories drawn in single line views. So this size is maintained regardless of the drawing scale. Okay, so that's for the duct fitting annotation annotation size. Okay, and then you also have air density here. So it affects the duct sizing calculation. So you can modify that. Air dynamic viscosity, it's the same. It also affects the duct sizing calculation. And then you also have the rectangular duct size separator. As you can see, there's the symbol. So it specifies the symbol to be used for displaying duct sizes. So for example, when the value is X, a duct that is 12 inches high and 12 inches deep is shown as 12 inches X 12 inches. Okay, so that's the separator. Okay, so what are the other things that you can do? And then you also have the suffix for the rectangular duct. Round duct, you have the suffix as well, and prefix. And then you also have here the symbol. Okay, you can just explore this one because it will take a lot of time if we're going to discuss each of this. So, but at least I just shown you that there are settings like this. Before you start your project, you can modify this. Then you also have what else? Duct connector separator. So for this one, it specifies the symbol used to separate information between two connectors. Okay. All right, so these are just some settings of the duct settings, and you also have here angle, and then conversion. Okay, so for the conversion, so you use this to specify the elbow angle increment setting. Okay, so you can modify from here the type and also the sizes. So let's say, for example, so we are going to change the setting. So for the conversion here, so for the system classification supply air, I'm gonna make sure that the duct type selected here is mitered elbow. So I want to have a mitered elbow here. So every time I create a duct with the supply air system for the main duct, so it will gonna be a rectangular duct mitered elbow tees. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that. And then the default elevation or the offset, I'll just leave it as it is, 2,750. And for the branch, okay, so for the branch, I can also change this one. So for example, for the branch, I make this mitered elbow tees as well. Okay, and then same height. Okay, I'll change it on the same height, 2,750. And then if you also want to include here the flexible dock type, so you can click the drop down and then you can select this. Okay, so that's for your supply air. And then that will gonna be the maximum flex dock length, which is 1,800. Okay, so this is just some example of that. So of course, you can still change this one before you start your project. And aside from that, I also want to go to the rectangular here. So let's say what I want, the size that I only want to be shown every time I create the dock. I do not want to show all of these sizes. So you can also customize this. Okay, so you can also customize. So let's say I'm going to use here, I do not want to use the 90 mm. So I'm going to uncheck that. Okay. Let's say I do not want to use a 110. Okay. Because that one is out of standard. Okay. So let's say same with 140. So I'm going to uncheck that one. Okay. And then we can also modify here the setting of your oval and then the setting of your round duct here. So for example, for the round duct, I also do not want to include here the 90, 110, what else? So let's say 140 as well. And what else? 260, for example. There's a 260 here. And 290. And also 300, no, 300, 290. This one, 390. I'll just check that one. And then 310. Okay. All right. So aside from that, we can also change here the settings for our pipe. So I go to the pipe, let's say here on the sizes. All right. So you can change the angle conversion just like what I did a while ago. So you can change here the segments and sizes. Segments and sizes. So as you can see, let's say I do not want to include the 20 mm. I'm going to uncheck this. So I do not want that to be included. So basically, these are the settings that I want to do. So if you have time, you can also check here the fluids that is available for you to modify. You can click the drop down arrow there, and then you'll see heaps of fluid types that you can specify there when you're doing your design. Same with the slope, and then same with the calculation, just to give you an idea how the Revit calculates it. Okay, so you can check from here from the mechanical settings. All right, so there you go. I'm just going to select here, okay. Oh, by the way, let me just put back the hidden line to zero point 0.5, zero point 0.5, zero point 0.5. Okay. All right, so another settings that you can modify here is the electrical settings. Again, the shortcut of this one is MS. For the electrical, which is this one, the shortcut is ES. Okay, so you can click this arrow here again to show the electrical settings. So you have here settings just like the mechanical. You also have here hidden lines. And then you have here general settings. Okay, so you can modify that for the electrical designer. I'm not into electrical designing, so I'm not really that adept in this kind of terminology. So what I'm just doing is I'm showing you these options to those electrical designers out there so that you can see that there are settings like this that you can modify. You also have here wiring that you can specify the wiring, like for example, the hot wire tick mark, ground wire tick mark, and neutral wire tick mark. So you can also specify that. Let's say, for example, let's play around with our electrical settings here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load a family first. Let's say here I want to add a type of tick mark. But as you can see, as I click the drop down arrow, there are no available families. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select here OK. So I'm going to select Insert tab, and then I'm going to load the family, and then I'm going to load electrical here, MEP, electric power. Is that the one? Electrical components. Let me check that one. Distribution. No, not this one. Connectors. Architectural. Okay. How about in annotation? Electrical. tick marks. So I select the tick marks here. So let's say I'm going to select long wire tick mark. And I also want to include the hook wire tick mark, and that's it. So I just select these two. So I want to load these two tick mark, the hook wire and also the long wire tick mark. Okay, so I just select here OK. Now, so going back to my systems tab, so I go to the electrical settings here. So let's say I want to load for the hot wire, I want to load here the tick mark, the hook wire tick mark. And then for the ground, so I'm going to select long wire as well as for the neutral. Okay, so basically you can do this one. So you can add families type for the tick mark. So aside from that, you can also go to the wire sizes, and then you can check out the materials that is used here. It can be aluminum or copper. Okay, and then the temperature as well, the insulation type, and then these are the settings that you can change. You can also check here the corrector factor. Okay, ground conductors, wiring types. So of course here on the wiring type, it specifies the wire types that can be used in a project. Okay, so you can add more or remove wire types as required. So the fields used to create the wire type are this one. So the name, the material, all right. So these are the fields that we use to create our wire type. Okay. And then if we are going back to the wiring here, you can specify the ambient temperature. So it specifies the temperature of the environment in which the wiring will exist. So you can specify from here. And then you also have the gap of wiring crossing. So it specifies the width of the gap displayed used to display unconnected wires that cross each other. And then again, those markups. Tick marks. Okay, and then of course you also have an option here if you want to show the tick marks. And then slanted line across tick marks. So it specifies whether the ground conductor tick mark is displayed as a diagonal line that crosses the tick marks for the conductor. Okay, so basically those are just some of the settings that I know. Okay, and what else that we can check here? Voltage definition. So again, if you are into electrical designing, so you should be familiar with this one, unlike me. Well, anyway, the voltage definition here, the voltage definition settings, it defines the ranges of voltages that you can assign to the distribution system available in your project. So each voltage definition is specified as a voltage range to allow for differing voltage values on devices per equipment rating. So for example, connection rated between 110 and to 130, just like this one, the minimum and maximum, okay, may be connected to a 120 volts circuit. So something like that. So aside from the voltage definition, so you also have the distribution system. So the distribution system settings define the distribution system that are available in your project. Okay. So you also have the cable tray settings here, just like your dock. So you also have that. So you can modify this, the symbology for the rise or drop symbol. So you can specify from here. Same with the sizes. So aside from the cable tray, so you also have the conduit settings. Again, you also have the rise and drop symbology for single line and two line, and then the size here, and then the load calculation. Okay, you can check this out for the designers out there, and also the panel schedule. Okay, so basically these are the two settings that you might want to tweak before you start your project. You may want to include to your project template. So I hope you learned something from this video, guys. So if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can put it on the comment section below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.